University of Rochester professor Sevinch Turkhan is one of few women in the region translating the work of female writers around the globe. Her published translations include the fiction of award-winning author, journalist, and human rights activist Aslı Ardoğan. Ardoğan was imprisoned for 4 months in 2016 by the Turkish government after being charged with supporting a terrorist organization. She was later released without being tried. Translating Ardoğan's work is much more than providing an English translation to the world. For Sevinç Turkhan, it's about giving women a voice and creating a platform for activism. Joining me now to discuss more is Sevinç Turkhan, and it is great to have you here. Thank you. First, talk to me about how you got involved in the world of translation, because I understand it was Aslı's book that you later translated, The Stone Building and Other Places, and her personal story that just really spoke to you.
Well, I guess the story begins with me. It's a kind of a personal story, and it's very ironic how our childhood experiences impact our adult lives. I was born in Bulgaria. When I was 11, my parents immigrated to Istanbul, Turkey, for political reasons, and I lived there until I finished college. Then I went to Germany to study in Berlin and Munich. I interned in Strasbourg in France. Then I came to the United States to get a graduate degree. So it seems like all my life I was translating, not only among languages, but also among cultures, cultural and religious practices. And it felt naturally to transition into a book-length translation project. I also knew Aslı because my research is on modern Turkish literature, so I knew her work very well. I admired her as a writer, as an activist. So I decided to translate initially the first 3 short stories. They weren't available in English. Actually, Turkish literature in English translation is very meager. So I wanted to translate them so that I can share them with my students in class. I teach women writers in world literature, and our conversations got very exciting. They supported the translation of the entire book. A colleague of mine at the University of Rochester supported. He saw a couple of drafts, initial drafts, and he said, "This is remarkable, you should pursue it." And this is how I got into it.
You know, you said that sometimes the translator can be as powerful as the original writer, and you shared with me that original pieces should be translated again and again and again. Talk to me about that. Explain the impact of the translator and also the benefit of a piece of literature being translated multiple times.
That's I think very important, but not a topic that we often think about this way. We like to sort of look at the final product as product and sort of forgetting that there was a long process that led to it. And I think translators should talk more about that process, that it's not a work overnight, that there's a lot of back and forth. For instance, it took me only 3 months to go through the initial draft, but then it took me 8 months to revise it and to bring it to a level that it is right now. Oftentimes I go to the first draft and I read it, and it reads more Turkish than it reads English to me.
How much interaction did you have then with Aslı in working on this?
Unfortunately, not much. After I finished the initial draft, she got arrested. So that really prevented our communication. But still, I think the editing process and being in interaction with colleagues around here was very helpful. And when I finally met her and she was able to comment on the translation, she said, this is one of the most poetic translations of my books, which was such a big compliment. But I don't like to see this as the final word on her works. I always believe that multiple translations of the same book should come, because these multiple translations can help us understand the original better, because the original means so many things, and my translation is only one interpretation of these.
Talk to me a little bit about, because you shared with me when we first connected several months ago, you said translation can be used as a form of activism. Explain how that works.
Initially, this translation was motivated purely by aesthetic and practical reasons. At the end of the 3 months when she got arrested, I realized that me staying in my office and spending 8 hours on translating a paragraph sometimes is useless unless that work steps out of the covers of the book, steps out of my office and becomes a public discourse. This is when I began writing to PEN International, reaching out to literary awards committees and began talking to them about her, whom nobody knew because she wasn't available in English. And English at times is the only language that award committees command in common. Some might read French, some German, but English becomes a common denominator. Therefore, an English translation is so important. And when the European Cultural Foundation Committee convened, they asked me for the first draft of my translation in order to be able to evaluate her work. And it seems like they liked it because she got the award. The word about her spread out and more awards followed, which was so supportive and important for her case at home. She was released from prison, even though she couldn't travel to the award ceremony because they kept her passport. They put a hold on her passport. But eventually, she was able to get her passport back. She traveled, and now she's in Germany, where she lives in exile. This is the power of translation to impact a human life, a woman's life, which I think is very important.
You are among the few women in Rochester who translate other women, and I understand that you are the only one who translates from a non-Western language. And you are really working to encourage women to pick up the translation craft. You want them to listen to stories from their elders, listen to the stories of those who can't write or necessarily share their voices. Talk about why that's an important focus for you. We know what can come from it. Your example is very evident, but talk about why it's important that this happens.
Helene, we all know writers such as Dostoevsky, Proust, Thomas Mann, Kafka, Murakami from Japan, Lu Xun from China, or Han Pamuk from Turkey, and these are all male writers. And how many of us remember their translators through whose language we have access to them? Think about women writers. They are already on the second stage in their communities, in their national arena. So for them to come on the world literary stage requires 2 steps. It's a longer process for them. Therefore, by selecting a woman writer who is as good a male writer, by supporting her, by sort of merging my voice with hers to translate her, to make her available to the world audience, I think this is a conscious choice, deliberate choice, which all women should be able to make.
You share with me, you said 2% of books published every year in the U.S. are translations, while in Turkey, 85% of books published every year are translations. We have to close, but talk about why the impact of being open to the translated word from other countries.
These numbers are very striking. A small country like Turkey with a small economy translates so much from German, from Russian, from English, from French. Constantly they are importing, which shows how much they are interested with the rest of the world. I think United States should emulate this. Thank you.
We have to close for now, but first a special thank you to my guest, Sevinç Türkan, University of Rochester professor and published translator. For a link to Türkan's translated work, go to our website, wxxinews.org.